year. So just starting off, my name is Francine Dawson, and I'm the Student Recruitment Manager for King's College London. And I'm actually covering the entire Southeast Asia region, so helping students to apply, also to give you some guidance and tips for applying to King's, and also generally to any university of your choice. And so my role is to give you some, today is to give you some guidance on how a personal statement should be drafted. Since I'm working for King's College London, so this all the information I'll be sharing today is based on the kind of personal statement that an application to King's should be. And since King is a top ranking university, you can probably use this guidance for almost any UK university that you're going to be applying to. And so the session today is going to help you to kind of stand out of all the personal statements that we may be receiving. But obviously, it's just guidance. It's up to you how you want to draft and shape it. But this session is going to help you understand what is really important and required for you to include in the personal statement. So starting off, I'm just going to show you some statistics about applications that King's receives in general. So for this 2024 application cycle, so this is for the current intake, we've already received over 70,000 undergraduate applications. So you can imagine the number of applications that are coming in to all the courses, and we have only about 170 different undergraduate programs. So you can kind of make a mathematical probability now of how many places, how many students might get a place at King's. And out of this 70,000 over applications, 50% of those undergraduate applications are all for our very popular courses. And at King's, those popular courses are programs like business management, accounting and finance, law, especially economics, politics, courses like PDVL, philosophy, politics and law, and politics, philosophy and economics, programs like medicine, dentistry, psychology, and even computer science, and courses like international relations are all becoming very popular. In fact, they are considered to be super competitive because we are getting a lot more applications than the number of places that are available on this program. So in general, the probability is about 1 to 25. So that's kind of like the ratio at the moment. So you can imagine how competitive it is, and why it's so important for you to write a really good personal statement. But in terms of a general application, what exactly are we looking for? So for a university like King's, or maybe any of the top UK universities, meeting the entry requirements are always um, the number one goal that the admissions office is going to be looking for. So you have to either meet the entry requirements or exceed the entry requirements that we've published. So all universities will publish their entry requirements on their websites. Make sure you check all of that before you start to apply. You must also have a really good academic record. So whatever qualifications you're doing right now, it could be A levels or the International Baccalaureate or maybe some other country qualifications. What is important is also the qualifications or the studies that you did before high school. So it could be GCSEs, GCSEs, or even any other national curriculum that you're studying. And all of this will also kind of build into what we're looking for in terms of academic wise. The other section of the UCAS application is a reference from the school. So one of your teachers, or maybe even the head of your department at your A-levels college, perhaps will be writing a reference about yourself. So they'll be talking about all of your strengths and things that you're doing, almost similar to a personal statement, but this is slightly different because it's coming from the school. And then we're also going to be looking for interviews. So now interviews would normally cover only certain programs. So not all courses are going to be interviewed for. But again, you have to check with universities. So the interview arrangements might differ from university to university. So for a university like King's College London, we normally only interview for programs that are governed by the NHS. So those are the health services courses like medicine, dentistry, physiotherapy, and nursing. But for other universities like Imperial, maybe even Cambridge and Oxford, they are going to interview for every single course that you're going to apply for. And then they'll also look at, what experience you have. So you might have done some work experience or some temporary jobs or job shadows. Sometimes it's important to have them, but most of the time it's not really crucial to have this work experience. It's it's essential. It can be essential, but it's not always desirable. So look at the university websites and make sure what you're writing. It's always good to have those work experience, but if you don't have them, it's not the end of the world. You can use other examples to kind of show your interest around the subject that you're applying for. And so some of this information goes into that personal statement. So that personal statement part of the application in UCAS is extremely important, especially if you're applying to very highly selective universities like King's College, or maybe even others, top 10 universities in the UK, or even other universities now who are looking at the personal statement more intently because courses are becoming very, very competitive. So just looking at this as well, personal statement and why is it important. Again, it's for us to kind of look at the application that's coming in. So something for you to remember is that popular courses doesn't mean those are the best courses to apply to. They are the very most competitive courses, and the top universities often increase entry requirements for very popular courses. It's because it's so competitive. So you need to think about, is that the right course for you? And like I said, competitive courses are not always the better courses because you have to think about the best ones where you can use your strength and your skills to kind of be successful in studying that particular degree. So when we say competitive courses, it actually means more application than places. So it's really difficult for someone to apply for a very competitive course if you don't have really good grades and also don't write a really good personal statement that describes yourself. And sometimes personal statements are used to also understand the situation with the student. So you may have an extenuating circumstance. So this could be a life-changing situation that happened to you while you were studying your final year in high school. So this may have interrupted your studies. This may have impacted on your performance as well. So the only way that we can understand if this has happened to you is when you include this information in your personal statement. And so the personal statement also tell us your strengths, like why you chose a particular course and the courses that you are currently enjoy studying. So it could be a subject, it could be certain areas of a program. So this personal statement is really important because it describes to us the kind of individual you are, your strengths, your skills, your subject interest, the situations that you have faced while you were studying or during the course of your studies, to help us understand you better and to also for us to decide if you're the best candidate or ideal candidate for our particular course. So the basics of the personal statement, it goes through the UCAS application. So if any of you here in this session don't understand what the UCAS application is all about, you can always contact PDVL to find out what those processes are. But within the UCAS application, there is a section which is the personal statement. So this section is at the moment a blank space where you will type in this personal statement, and it is only 4,000 characters long. So it's not really that long. And so it is kind of a limited space. It also has kind of limitation in the number of lines that you add into the space. Because the UCAS application is an online application, you can copy and paste things into the personal statement section. So do remember to check the number of lines and the number of characters in your draft before you add that into the space, because if it goes beyond 4,000 and characters and 47 lines, that information that you've just copied and pasted in that section will be edited out. So do check and make sure that you are following the rules of the number of characters and also the number of lines. And so the personal statement, like I mentioned, is all about you. That's why it's called the personal statement. This is where you write your motivation, your enthusiasm to study a particular subject, and all your aptitudes, all your skills and your strengths. So this personal statement, you only have to write one. And then this one personal statement goes out to the 5 university choices that you're going to add to your UCAS application. So if you are applying for any other course besides medicine or dentistry, you have 5 university choices. But if you're applying for medicine and dentistry, you can only in 4 universities. But in any case, you still just write one personal statement and it goes out to all your university choices. So you cannot have separate personal statements. But if you are going to do that, you need to check with the university if they're going to accept a different personal statement. But we'll come to that later on. So what does the statement actually need to do? It is there to kind of like capture the attention of the admissions officer or the admissions tutor. So normally the admissions tutor is a lead academic in the university who is teaching a particular course, and they're going to be reading this personal statement to understand who this applicant is and whether this person is going to be a right fit in their classroom. And then it's going to demonstrate all your motivation and enthusiasm. So why do you want to study this particular course, or what is driving you to want to study a particular subject? And this is also where you can talk to us about the skills and competencies that you have to study a course. So what makes you the right candidate for us to choose you? So all of that will be in there. So it will not be a specific uh, personal statement to a university. It will just be a general personal statement about the subject that you want to study. So you cannot mention a university name in there, especially if you're going to talk about applying to a particular university. So there is no need to talk about applying to any university in your personal statement, because we can already see which universities that you're applying to in your application. So what do you need to include in a personal statement? So at least 80% to 75% of the personal statement needs to cover all your academic pursuits. So these could be things that are in school. So you can talk about the academic subjects that you are really interested in that are linked to the course. So if you're applying for something in the biosciences, you can talk about your biology and chemistry experience, studying that in school, all your assignments and projects. You can talk to us about things that you've done, like your extracurriculars that may be linked to the subject. So if that's clubs or societies, you can talk about that. So this is like your super curriculars, things that you have probably attended around biology, chemistry. Maybe it's a master class or a taster lecture, or you attended like an excursion or a project. You can talk about those. So those are considered the super curriculars. And then you talk about things maybe outside of school, and probably about what you've done on your own. So again, about the super curriculars. So maybe work experience as well, if there's anything that's related to the course, and like, things that you are doing that could be linked to a particular subject or the undergraduate degree that you're going to apply for. And next will be the extracurriculars and maybe also some skills that you want to talk about. So this might form about 25% or maybe 20%. The kind of ratio is completely up to you, but as long as there is a larger portion of the personal statement talking to us about your academic pursuits, that will be the best. So extracurriculars, it could be things that may be related to the program, but could also be things that are not related at all. So it could be other activities where you're using your other skills and talents. So you could be talking about your communication skills or maybe your leadership skills. So this could be linked to a particular club or society that you're working in, or it could also be anything else that you're doing, like charity work or volunteer work. So you just need to explain to us about the skills that you got out of all the extracurricular activities and the experiences. We're not really fussed about what clubs or what societies you joined, what type of extracurriculars that you're doing. All the universities are more interested in are your skills and your talents. So you can think about, if you're not doing anything yet, you can think about what are the subjects that you want to study, what are the industry that you're probably going to work in, and what skills you probably need to study a particular degree. So you can talk about your skills and maybe your experiences when you think about these questions. So it could be any kind of skills and talents, maybe related to the course or maybe completely not related, like your music skills or your sports skills. So just looking at a personal statement, I'm not sure if you can read this, but if you're on your laptop, if you're on a large laptop, I'm pretty sure you can see the text there. This is a real personal statement taken from one of the applicants to King's College London. And I'm just using this as an example to show you how the structure of the personal statement will look like. So the topmost paragraph is the motivation part. This is where you're talking about the subject that you want, why you want to study the particular subject. So usually the paragraphs don't really explain or don't really state the course that you want to study, because that part of it is already in the UCAS application. So you just go on and start talking about why you wanted to be a dentist or a doctor or any other engineer or something, and what motivated you to want to apply for a particular course. And then you can talk about all your academic interests and achievements. So like what you've done so far, if you're doing particular A-level subjects that are required for a particular degree, you can also talk about them here. And you can talk about the supercurriculars, so things that you are doing outside of school, maybe pursuing on your own around the subject area. And then there are the experience part where you can talk about your part-time work, or maybe a job shadow, or maybe any kind of volunteer work or charity work that you did. And then you go on to do your extracurriculars, where you speak about the other skills and talents that you have. So the whole idea here is to have a nice flow of the beginning, kind of like the middle, where you talk about all the other things that you're doing, and then your extracurriculars, and finally maybe one or two lines to kind of close up the whole personal statement, maybe talking about your future aspirations. This will be kind of like the best structure to have for your personal statement. So we're just going to go into all the different sections and just give you some ideas on what to think about and how to kind of like shape those paragraphs. So do you have like a real reason of why you want to study a particular course? I know sometimes some people have a very methodological idea of what they want to study, but some people may be inspired by things that have happened to them, probably from things that they have observed, or maybe some kind of experience that they've had. So you can talk about that, or maybe an article or book that you've read, or maybe a documentary you watch, or maybe even a movie or a TV series. But you don't have to go into a real detailed explanation of it. You can just use simple words to kind of explain why exactly studying that particular course um, is important to you and what has inspired you. So something that you learned during your school time, or any experience that you've had, like a personal experience. This is where you would talk about it in that introduction and motivational section. So it doesn't have to be something that will really blow us away. It's just something that we feel is good for us to know in terms of how you got this idea of the degree or the subject that you wanted to study. So just to give you some information here about things that we probably don't like to see in a personal statement. So things like, from a very young age, I've always been fascinated by XYZ. Obviously, when you are very young, you probably didn't even know that a personal statement actually existed. So, how could you have had some kind of interest around something, and then when you're 18, try to recall back when you're probably 6 or 7. So try to be more realistic. Don't use phrases like, for as long as I can remember. If it's things are very challenging, you don't have to talk about the course in the personal statement. We find that there are people who normally write personal statements and talk about the career, the profession around the particular course, and then try to describe what that is in the personal statement. That's not necessary, and it's not required at all, because what we want to know is about you and why you were inspired. You don't need to tell us what are you currently studying, because we can see that from the UCAS application. And then please do not use any kind of cliches or any kind of lines that you probably picked up from somewhere, though it may be nice to have, but it's not really important to include. And remember, you've only have 4,000 characters and 47 lines, so you don't want to waste that space putting in you know a quote from somebody else that doesn't really mean anything and is not going to help your application. So just to give you some examples here of what is a good kind of paragraph to start with and what would be a bad one. So looking at the one that is not so good, So there's someone writing saying that they're very interested in studying computer science because they find it fascinating and they've loved it since they were a child. This could be true, but now we're living in an age where I think everyone's been exposed to computer science, technology, and things like that. So it doesn't really make us or make you stand out when you're writing something like this. Um, it could be something more deeper or something that would be really relevant and will show how you created that interest. So looking at this example now, this person was studying the Depression that happened in the US in the 1930s. And so this, when they were doing the extended project, they got really excited about studying economics, and this is where they got their interest. So when we look at a paragraph like this, it really tells us a lot about the person. So they obviously know about the subject. They're doing research, so that's a really good individual who's doing research. And now, after looking at this particular event that happened in the history of the world, they've discovered their interest for economics. So this one paragraph has now told us a lot of things about the person who's writing the personal statement. So this is the kind of motivational paragraphs that we are looking for that will help us get a really good picture and idea of how interested and how enthusiastic the applicant is. So I'm going to share with you again a little bit more about how to kind of like expand what you want to say and make it sound more interesting than what you would normally put in. So a lot of people write things like, I like swimming. Okay, we know that for Kings, we get like 70 or 1,000 applications. Probably 50% of applications in there might write about, things of their skills, might include swimming. So that doesn't make you very unique. So it's just something that, a lot of people have. Okay, you're right that you're swimming for the national squad. So this is maybe something different. But again, there could be a lot of other people who are swimming for the national squad or maybe even for international teams. So it doesn't really make you very different. But when you say things like, I swim for my country competitively every Thursday and then assist the junior squad to develop their techniques, now that says a lot more about the person, the individual. It's not about swimming anymore because that is a skill that a lot of people can acquire these days. So it's not everything different. But this explains now that it is a lot more about what the person does. So it shows frequency, it shows engagement because they are talking to their junior colleagues in the squad. They are taking care of the junior squad. And obviously, to be able to train and help a different team, a younger team, you have to be able to communicate really well. And doing this every Thursday shows that you are really committed. So in that one paragraph, we get to see a different side of this applicant. So it's a lot more about what they're doing on the side, not just, what their interests and their talents are. So obviously they have all these other things that they are doing. So think about how you shape your sentences and what you write in the personal statement, because it's really going to make a huge difference when you start thinking about how to make it more enriching and how to describe yourself in the things that you're doing as well. So just talking a little bit more about those evidences of your personal experience, it's really important to be reflective when you're talking about those personal experience. So what did you do and what you gain out of it is important to write. And then when you're talking about those personal experiences, it does cover the supercurriculars as well as the extracurricular, or maybe even work experience. So having evidences in your personal statement is really important. So just thinking of those two examples that I showed earlier, is going to be giving us a lot more information about you. So you can say things about, how studying a particular subject or maybe reading a particular journal or a book has given you, an idea, information, or you can also talk about extracurriculars, about the things that you're really interested in. So maybe sport or music, look beyond the things that you're doing. So think about the other things that you are getting out of, the other benefits that you're getting out of doing a particular extracurricular or supercurricular activity. So I'm also going to share with you how do you shape those evidence, because I think this is really important. Sometimes a lot of students write about their experiences using evidence in their personal statement, but it isn't really very clear. And sometimes they really get to the end and kind of miss all the important bits in the middle. So there are different techniques that you can use, but the one that I'm going to be sharing with you today is called the CAR technique. So C stands for context, A is for action, and R is for result. So when you say context, you think about where you were when you were around the evidence that you want to share. What were you doing there, or what the circumstances were? So just kind of think about that whole situation. And then the action. So what was the activity? Why were you doing it? And what were the skills that were demonstrated in the action that you were doing, or in the activity that you were doing? And then you talk about the results. So what did you achieve? It could be you were in a competition, so you can talk about what you achieved. We can also explain about the skills that you used, and or maybe new skills that you got out of them, maybe also knowledge that you gained from doing this particular activity. So this is the best way to kind of like best technique to use to kind of explain an evidence that you want to write in the personal statement. So think about those questions and just remember this CAR technique. It's really useful, very quick. If you kind of like write this down now and then follow those questions to kind of help you shape the evidence that you want to include in the personal statement. I'm just going to share with you an example of this CAR technique. So this is taken again from a real personal statement. So this person is describing a particular situation. So this is the context. They were observing a nurse administer medication to a long-time patient who's suffering from dementia. So obviously this person is using the CAR technique to talk about their work experience or job shadow experience. And the context, sorry, the action was that um, they were being patient, they were taking their time to comfort the patient. The nurse was able to convince the patient to take the medication. So this was in some ways describing how your observation skills are, so how good your observation skills, because you were looking at it very detailed. And then the result was that how you saw how this role of being patient and having sympathy for someone can play a good way of having a good bedside manner. So this helps the patient to take the medication. So if you are writing for, if you're applying for medicine, and you need to use some of the evidence that you've done in your job shadow, you can use this kind of method, because most of the time when you're doing um, any kind of work attachment for a medical student, you're not going to be able to put your hands on the patient. You're only going to be standing there and observing other people doing different techniques, so a doctor or a nurse. So in this example, this person was observing a nurse administer medication, and they describe this using the CAR technique, so using the context, action, and the result. So we consider this like a good example. Obviously this person was able to get a place for medicine. So I've just taken this paragraph from their personal statement. So if you're going to be applying for medicine or some healthcare course, when you're writing the personal statement, you have to remember that you need to talk about, or may be able to show us that your understanding of what it is to be either a doctor or someone in that discipline. So it's really important to have that insight. Um, you need to have some commitment to volunteer work, community work. You need to have really good skills, so observational skills, analytical skills is really important. And then personalities as well, having empathy, having being honest, and having some good work ethics. It's always really important to have. And this is kind of like what we're looking for in that personal statement as well when you're talking about yourself. So it's always good to describe yourself with all those skills that I mentioned just now. And also with work experience, we don't expect everyone to have work experience, because I know that it's not easy to get work experience. So even if this is someone who's not aiming to become a doctor or applying for medicine, work experience is always just a desirable choice. It's not always important that if you have it. And if you do have the work experience, like I said earlier, what we want to see is what you've seen, what you've heard, not so much of what you did. You are observing someone else use their skills, and so perhaps you are beginning to get or beginning to hone your observational skills so you can talk about what you've learned. So like I said earlier, most of the time if you're applying for this kind of programs in the personal statement, it's not necessary that you talk about the work experience, but more about the skills that you have, because it's always going to be about what you saw and what you experienced. And yeah, if you didn't get work experience, it's not going to be a disadvantage, but you can tell us what you did alternatively. So think about what else you can do. So if you're applying for business or economics-based subject, it's always good to know how you got your interest around this disciplinary course, because programs like economics and business covers a lot of different areas, a lot of different disciplines and modules. So it is a course that is looking for people with varied interests. So you need to talk about which part of economics, which part of business that really interested you. So being general at this point, I think is not really helpful to an application anymore, because business applications are becoming really, really competitive. So it's always good to know your understanding of what you've done. So maybe pick an area of within the business program, pick an area within economics, and you can talk about those where you can show off your skills and maybe your knowledge and experience around the things that you did. So you could relate that to any kind of event or area, like it could be politics, it could be social, it could also be cultural. If you're thinking about law and politics, it will be nice to have you talk about things that are happening within the country that you are from, or some area that is affecting or impacting you. Make it more personal, make it more unique by talking about a country or maybe even a region, because all of the law students come from all over the world, and our academics really want to learn from all these students as well. So if they find you talking about an area of interest within your personal statement, something that's unique, it could be personally unique, it could also be unique about a country, that's something that will pique their interest, and that would definitely mean that you have a really good personal statement. Talking about personal opinion about certain thing, that is also considered quite good to have if you're going to apply for law or politics, and any kind of extracurricular um, i- activities that you've done could be based on the subject, maybe based on a skill that's required to study the course as well. Okay. So if you're thinking about applying for very technical degrees like engineering, then again, it will be nice for you to kind of pick on a particular subject component or specialism. So because engineering has loads of different specialisms, maybe you can put your interest around a specific area. Or if you're looking at particularly technical degrees that could be related, so an understanding of the particular area of engineering or any kind of extracurriculars around it, it's always good to link back to the subject and the transferable skills that you need to probably study a particular course, especially in programs where it's very technical. A lot of communication skills required, team working is also required. So when you're applying for these kind of programs and you're writing your personal statement, make sure you're writing all the related skills that we want to see in someone who is going to be studying that course, because those skills are also important to have while you're studying that particular course. So we're coming to the extracurriculars now. This forms about 10, 15% of that towards the end of the personal statement. So before you conclude the whole personal statement, you want to talk about other things that you have, other transferable skills, communication skills, or maybe team working skills that may be not related to the course or the subject. This is where you can probably talk about other achievements you have, maybe different awards, could be related to the extracurriculars, um, or could be a super curricular, doesn't matter really. And then towards the end of your personal statement, it would be nice to kind of like tie back everything to what you've written earlier. So based on all your examples and evidence, um, you can also talk about your career aspirations. You may have you might be wanting to study medicine, but at the end of the day, your main aim of studying medicine is actually to start doing cancer research or something else. So you can talk about it that way, or you can talk anything else, of how how you see the future and where you see you fit into the future. It could be related to the industry that you want to work in. It could also be related to the university and how you feel that you will be an asset to a particular or any university, for example. Um, we just want to see maybe one or two sentences. So if you don't really have anything to say, think about how you can expand the last bit about your extracurriculars. So you don't really need to talk or have a sentence, but it will be nice to have a concluding sentence. And yeah, the last thing you want to do is end the personal statement with a cheesy quote. That's always not really nice to have. And again, go back to the rules of the personal statement in terms of the number of places and number of characters that you have. So mm, please keep that in mind and try to omit the least important things as possible. So things that you want to avoid, make sure that you have really good quality examples in there. So don't put in so many evidences and examples where it doesn't really pinpoint your strengths or your abilities. So keep that in mind. Please don't lie, because sometimes some people can exaggerate something where when the admissions officers read that, it always seems as too good to be true. So please avoid lying or exaggerating. Sometimes, if you're applying for a particular course that requires interviews, some of the interviewers might go and look at your personal statement and might pull out certain things. And if you couldn't remember that you've lied about it in a personal statement, you might not be able to perform really well during that interview as well. So it's always good not to lie. And don't talk about the university, because that means it's not a really good outlook for the other universities that you apply to. So please don't put down one particular university in your application. A lot of people tend to those of those of you who apply for like Oxford or Cambridge forget that the same personal statement is going out to all the other universities. And normally we find a lot of people make this mistake because they're trying to go for the earlier deadline. So they submit a personal statement mentioning about Oxford and Cambridge and didn't realize that it's the same personal statement that's going out to all the other university options that they're going to add on later. So please make sure you're not doing those mistakes. And also the really important thing, check your spelling, check your grammar, and check your punctuation errors. Even though in this day and age, there are so many kind of gadgets and equipment that can help you check all of this, we still find students making a lot of mistakes, spelling and grammar, even in punctuations. So try to make sure that you're checking all of this every time when you're drafting that personal statement. And you really don't need to use like very bombastic words. Very simple words that are able to describe what you are, your abilities, your strengths, and your experiences will be good enough. We're not looking for anyone with great language skills. And so things need to make sense. So using the thesaurus is not probably the best option. Just make sure you're using the right words. And please do not put down a list of things that you've done, because it doesn't explain what you got out of them. So take away any shopping list. If any one of you is already drafting a personal statement, if you're writing down lists of things that you won or competitions that you've participated in, please remove them, because we just want to see one example of your best efforts and your best options. So your final tips before we end this session is to make sure that you proofread your draft. If you're writing this with the guidance of a school teacher, school counselor, they'll be able to help you proofread them as well. If you're having like a writer's block, you can take a break and you can try again later. You can share it with someone whom you trust, obviously, because these days a lot of people tend to take pictures of things that they've done and post them on social media without realizing that people can actually, copy things online and save pictures onto your phone, and they can use whatever you've written. Remember that UCAS has a similarity detection app. So if it checks your personal statement and finds that there is another personal statement out there somewhere with the words, same words in a sentence, that means you have broken the plagiarism rule, and if it's considered plagiarism, your application in UCAS will be rejected by all universities. So you will be removed from that particular year entry. You can only apply again the following year. So make sure you're not sharing your good work with other people. Make sure the person that you're sharing with and asking for advice is someone that you can trust and someone who will not betray you. And then make sure you're talking about very positive things and highlighting all your positive stuff and not so much about your weaknesses. Because again, this is where you're writing about the best in you, why you are the best student that we should be looking out for, and what are your best skills and what are your best strengths. So focus your personal statement on you and the things that are positive that you have done and you have achieved. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. And so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them now.
Thank you, Francine, for the very informative workshops and giving a lot of ideas. So I hope students you got bring back some information. And now, if you are looking to apply for the 2025 intakes, it's a good time for you now to draft the business statement. So we are now in the Q&A sessions before the ending, and we can take a few questions from students. Any question from students?
So that's a question that I see. So this is generally about UCAS. Is there an age requirement for applying to UCAS? No, there isn't any age requirement. So this is in the UK, there is no discrimination according to age. So anyone at any age can still apply to UCAS. Do we get a copy of your slides? Can we share the slide?
Is that okay?
It might be a trimmed down version of the slides, so I'll try and share something.
I have a questions here. It is the format of business statement only for UK universities, or also in the Australia or other parts of Europe?
So I'm not very familiar with applications to Australia and European universities, but I imagine that it's almost similar to any university application these days. So you can use the same structure. It's a really good structure to explain about yourself and why you're applying for a particular course. So the format should work for other universities as well.
Yeah, some different university and different countries have different admission policies. I know that some of the Australian university not require personal statements at all. But for UK, if you're applying the application through UCAS, but even direct application to the university, all students are required to have the business statement. It's a very important document to submit together with your results and everything. So a good personal statement could really help you to stand out from the others' applications. So especially if you're applying for very competitive programs and very high-ranking university like King's College London. Any more questions? I got this question from Dev. Do we have to mention why we want to study in the UK? And if yes, where in the business statement should we mention this?
No, you don't need to mention why you want to study in the UK. We just want to know why you want to study a course. So because you're applying through UCAS, obviously it's a UK application process. So all we want to know is why you want to study a particular subject or a course. So it's not required to mention why you want to study in UK generally. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question from student Sean about how much does keeps the skills in our favor. What if my personal statement is average, but everything else is really great and perfect? But how much importance of the business statement in the tip of scale? Maybe 0 to 10.
Yeah,
It's
I
only
think
the business statement.
I think it depends on the course that you're applying to. But for most of the programs, even for at King's, the personal statement alone doesn't decide whether you would get an offer or not. It is a combination of other things as well. So if it is a very straightforward course, for example, engineering at King's doesn't require interviews. So we are going to be looking at your grades, the predicted grades that you're going to achieve, and then the personal statement to give us an idea of how you are as an individual, whether you have the required skills and the knowledge, so around the subjects that you're studying in school. So that will help us decide whether you are the best individual to study engineering at that particular university. So I guess that's how it is. So it isn't so much of a percentage of where the personal statement comes in. So for someone who wants to apply for medicine, perhaps the personal statement is going to be used to see whether they have, again, the right skills, what they have done, their knowledge, their experience. But the personal statement in combination with your grades, and then finally, you've got to take a test for medicine. So it's the UCAT test. So personal statement in combination with the UCAT test scores is going to determine whether you would get a call for interviews. So this is how the personal statement works. So it's not so much about making sure or kind of like the formula to getting an offer, but it gives us that background information of that applicant. And this is where we can see how enthusiastic or determined they are, how determined they are to want to study that particular course and to want to kind of explore all the other things with the skills that they have. I hope that helps.
Yeah. And I think if the places are very limited, but the fact of the application received is just simply too many. And if all other students applying at the end of the selection stage is too many, and they got to filter students not only based on their results purely, but they will look at things beyond, like your experience that you put into the personal statement and how you well draft, and they're giving the overall image about the students. Okay. There is another question from student. Um, Thanks for the informative presentation, Miss. However, I would like to clarify whether the experiences and events that we quote in our PS, it needs to be extracted from within a specific time frame. For example, can I talk about my middle year school experience, or it got to be a specific timing only?
Yeah, there isn't a specific time frame, but it would be best if you're using um, very recent examples. So it depends on, and I think it depends on that example as well. So if this middle school experience is really important to you, it's like a really eye opener, and it's got like the best evidence of how you've used your skills or things that you've observed and discovered, then you can go ahead and use that. It doesn't really have like a perfect timeline that you should pick your evidence from, but the most recent and the most the I guess the best experience that where you can describe all your skills, that's the most important part of it. Okay.
So does it mean that if the experience weight the same, the senior and the middle, that we should consider to prioritize the senior and the most recent one?
That would be best. But if they have like, the best middle school experience, then
Very
obviously talk,
impactful.
yeah, very impactful. Obviously talk about those as well. But I wouldn't go um back, beyond that, because that would
Mm,
not, I don't think that would help much.
okay, right. Is there any more questions? We can take.
There was one earlier about extracurriculars from Bianca. She asked about
Okay.
if we can put two or more of our best achievements, example, national level competitions in different sports. Yes, of course, but of course you have to be mindful. So what you can do is, list down all those achievements, and then you can write those all in your draft and then start editing it. And then you might be able to see how you can fit everything in. So you can put down two when you start drafting, and then probably try and see which is a better version if you really need to edit and remove one out. But yes, you can put more than one experience for extracurriculars. But again, it has to make sure that you fit that 4,000 characters and that 47 lines, and you can pick and edit like the best examples to include as well.
Did this answer your questions, Bianca? Oh, okay. We got one more question from Sean. Is it better to write it straight to the point, or write it as if you were talking to someone?
I think the best thing to do is imagine if you're in a job interview and you want to sell yourself. How would you write it? So it has to be straight to the point, and it could be as if you're writing or talking to someone. So it depends on how you want to tell that story. So basically, you are speaking to the admissions officer or the admissions tutor. So it has to be written in that sense. So it's the both of what you said actually. Get straight to the point and as if you're talking to somebody, and this is your chance to try and convince them in that short 4,000 characters or what the best parts of you are, all your strengths and your skills. So it's completely up to you how you want to write it, but it's always getting straight to the point, but making sure that you're covering all the basic information there, providing that context, talking about the action, and then also the results.
Okay, thank you. And I have a direct message sent to me from Andrew. Should we mention the names of the clubs and extracurriculars that we have, or should we just stick to our experiences?
You can mention the name of the extracurriculars if that's the specific example that you want to use. You can mention it, but like I shared earlier, two will probably be the maximum. And if you think it's important to mention the name of the club, go ahead. But if it's not, you can just describe the situation that you were in. Okay. There's another question from Joey. It's also about extracurriculars. So can it be outside of school or must it only be within the school? Yeah, it could be anything. So if you want to talk about things that you're pursuing on your own, so you can also talk about that. So it doesn't always have to be the extracurriculars that you're doing at school. Anything that you feel is the best example, just use that. So it may not be the extracurriculars that you're doing at school may not be the best example. So talk about the ones that you're doing outside of school that you're pursuing on your own. So it depends. There's a follow-up question from Joey. So does the experience or events linked to the extracurricular activity? Um, it depends on how or what example you're using. It will be good to kind of like link your skills to the extracurricular activity. So whatever you're talking about, when you're talking about extracurriculars, we still need to link it to something. So what are you trying to explain to us in the extracurriculars? So normally it's about a skill or a talent. Supercurriculars are used to kind of link around your knowledge for the subject. So what things that you're doing beyond what you're studying at school. So this is how it works. So if you're using extracurriculars to also link to subject, that's also possible because you could be applying to probably computer science, and then you can talk about the extracurricular work that you're doing in the computer science club at school, for example, or maybe you're doing different things, you're learning coding on your own, you can talk about that. So it really depends on how and what you want to link it to. So you either link it to a skill or a talent, or you link it to the subject.
Okay.
I hope that explains the question.
I have one interesting question. Student asking if the UCAS system can detect whether the personal statement is written by AI or the ChatGPT.
Right. So this has come up really very common these days, and I've got this
Yeah.
question so many times at all the other schools as well. So I think it can detect it. So I think UCAS is trying to make their similarity detection app that has been built into the UCAS application to kind of also pick up if ChatGPT or ghostwriters are writing the personal statement, because what it is going to do is it's going to search somewhere in that whole internet and the web whether there is a document that exists that has at least 10 or more words in the same sequence in a sentence. So if it finds that, so this, what I'm talking about is the UCAS similarity detection function. If it finds that sentence somewhere, that will be considered a plagiarism. So if ChatGPT has given somebody else the same results and it's the same sentence, that's where it will come out as, it's they are picking up this information and they are picking this up from another personal statement or from somewhere else in the web where they've seen the same structure, the same 10 words appearing in one sentence. I'm just giving this an example, but that's how it works with UCAS. And I think UCAS sees it as a percentage. So I think the minimum is about 30% of your personal statement if it has been copied from somewhere, whether it's through ChatGPT or written by some kind of artificial intelligence, um, it's considered plagiarized, and then your application will be rejected or removed from UCAS that year.
So
All right.
the percentage would be not more than 30%.
30% and more, I believe. If it's below 30%, I think it depends on what UCAS has discovered. So there will be discussed between UCAS and also the universities that that person has applied to. And I believe UCAS will leave it to those universities to decide if they want to reject or accept. So this is 30% and below. 30 and above will definitely be immediately removed from the UCAS application cycle.
Okay. So that would be a risk. So if you are using ChatGPT to
Yes, yeah,
like grammar check or perfect your sentence or anything, because you will never know the brains behind
yeah,
the AI behind. There would be like
exactly.
referring to the previous business statement samples online or anything.
Or
So
anywhere
if
else, yeah,
yeah,
because
anywhere else.
it's able to pull information from everywhere in the world. So whatever's within the World Wide Web and whatever's existing elsewhere, because it's not just about the internet, but also any device that you have. And if you save things on a cloud or anything like that, it's going to pull all that information from somewhere. And if somebody else has already submitted a personal statement with similar sentences or paragraph, and ChatGPT has given you this as an option, please make sure that you somehow tweak those sentences or change some words and don't use them exactly how the results that you got from using all these other kind of like apps to get the best sentences or the best shapes and paragraph.
Thank you, Francine.
No worries.
We can take one more questions before the ending. Is there any more?
This is another question from Sean about how specific must we go into? Is it like I'm really talented at a subject? Some examples, why or am I super good at 1, 2, 3, or not so much? I think you need to be specific to the course and to what you want to write about. Again, like, if you're applying for medicine, for a university like King's, we require the person to have knowledge around biology and chemistry. Another university, for example, some of the Scottish universities don't always ask for both biology and chemistry. They might ask for just one of those subjects. So then you need to think about if those universities are one of your options as well, then you must choose the one that everybody had or is asking for as a required subject, and not talk about the things that you're not good at, because it doesn't help with your application as well. So pick the ones that are going to best describe you and your knowledge around that particular subject. So this could be the same for your extracurricular and your skills as well. It would be best to just stick to positive notes, not necessarily talk about the things that you're not good at, because that's really not going to help you with your application. All right. Um, there's a question here from Xin Yan about, may I know how could I write for my hard work in academic besides from my extracurricular, I think this is where you talk about super curriculars. If you're really doing well in like your academic subjects, you can talk about things that you studied at school, and you can also talk about the things that you're doing on your own. So obviously, if you really like a particular subject, you might also be following certain journals or maybe reading other books by experts in that field. So this is where that comes in about, expanding how your knowledge around that particular area. So not just sticking to what you're studying at school, but telling us how you've kind of like motivated yourself and your enthusiasm around that subject by talking about the other things that you're doing based on that subject. So this could be journals, could be books, could be things that you find online, could be podcasts, could be things that you're following as on social media as well. There are lots of different experts on social media that, put up their discoveries, their information. So you could talk about that as well. There are things like TED Talks, um, so many things out there, podcasts that you can kind of follow around a specific subject area because you are really into a particular subject or particular area of expertise. So this is where you then expand beyond your knowledge in school and talk about all those other super curricular things that you're doing. Okay, I think that was the last question. Don't see anything else, and I don't think we
From my
missed
end,
anything.
also don't have any more. Before we end, I would like to highlight the promotions that we offer to students if you're applying for the UCAS 2025. And if you need assistance, you can do it yourself, DIY, apply the UCAS application by your own. But if you need someone to guide you through the process, to give you the information and to provide you more information, and every steps of the way, we will guide you, like help you for UCAS application filling, and then document check, follow up with the university, and later on, if you successfully got the offer, and will guide you for acceptance and then help you for accommodation booking. And the most important part, I think, is the visa application. It can be very complex and very daunting. So if let's say, if you want to have someone with you and guide you every steps of the way, and all our services are free to students. But what's more, for those students attending for today's event, we already mark your attendance. You will be entitled for our package. You will enjoy the UCAS application fee waiver, and also we're giving out 1,000 ringgit Malaysia. Is for the some like application token for students. So you will be contacted by our consultant for this offer. I think that's end for our workshops for today, and thank you for your time to attend. And most importantly, and I would like to dedicate my gratitude and thank you very much, Francine, to spare your time, precious time, to share about the personal statement, how to write a good one for students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and I hope you really took some good points and tips away from this session. And then, have a great evening and all the best in your UCAS applications and personal statement drafting.
Thank you.